cleared personnel contracting challenges, IT and data security roles. Glad you guys could join us. With it, we have Steve Mackey. He's the president and CEO of SSI. How you doing, Steve?
Great, thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, man. And April Duncan, she's the HR director. Since we're talking HR things, right?
Right. Hey, everybody. Good to see you.
That's right. And I'm Dave Lowe. I'm your GovBrief host, and our information is there. Welcome to the folks that are here. I already mentioned that for the NASA people, I got the NASA mug. It's not that I don't like the FAA or Department of Justice. I don't have a mug. So there you have it. So for FEMA, the Air Force, SB, all the folks here. So we're really glad that you guys decided to join us. Let me get rid of that thing and on the other screen. And best briefing ever from Aldwin from DHS. I learned one principle, just one principle on retaining an employee. Only one employee they need to retain, apparently, April. So
we'll help them out.
That's right. Aldwin, we got you cooking there. Kristen with the Air Force. It provides clarification regarding the security challenges we have with contractors. Woo! You mean there's no way? No security, no problems with contractors, April Duncan? No way. Barry from DLA provides ideas on how to retain properly certified contractor personnel. Whoa, yes, we know that this is a problem. And again, it's a big best briefing ever. If I can find people, qualified personnel with a proper clearance, imagine that. I can get tips on how to find candidates with DoD secret clearance. Love that. Desire, sorry. Kelly, retention pitfalls are identified. Woo.
Yes, ma'am.
Problems retaining people, I think. Nabila, if it addresses inclusion of competitive pay raises and office culture issues that may be costing talent retention. That couldn't be better, could it?
That's fantastic.
Nabila, you got it. That's the real deal right there.
You can brief the next slide.
Yeah, we'll definitely get there. And Kimberly from FEMA wants situations where the vendor substitutes personnel are not already badged. No way. Can't imagine that happens.
Never happens.
Never happens. Barry, contractual incentives to motivate contractors, recruit, retain properly certified personnel. Ooh, is there a theme here? Oh, this is the same thing. And Nabil, again, we address financial gap and talent retention incentives. Option years to include sign up and retention bonuses. Nabila, you are so on fire.
She needs to brief us.
That's right. You can probably run this thing. All right. So participating is easy. If you want us to know anything, you can chat, you can raise your hand, you can do the Q&A. We're going to be doing that throughout. And if you have anything you want to take offline, you can send it to info@ssihq.net, and that will get it to these characters that we've been talking about, April and Steve. And whoa, I went the wrong way. And if you've been living under a rock and you don't know how Zoom works, you can go up to this little doodah up top there and you can manipulate things and make us bigger or smaller, see exactly what you want to see. As far as the session agenda, we're going to be talking about introductions to these characters here, the folks that are here, as well as why you are here and why we are having these discussions, because there are problems and challenges, right, April Duncan?
Yes.
Yes, there are. And we're going to talk about keeping talent from leaving and the framework that's necessary, getting smart about the market, buying smart, and strategies for retention, because everybody knows that that's really one of the most critical pieces that are involved in this. We will get to your questions throughout this, but we will have a session at the end because I think we're going to have a lot. I think they're going to be happening, as well as get you out of here, hopefully reasonably close to on time. Session documents are going to be placed in there right this minute from Terry. Terry, you got those for me? You can pop those in. This includes the briefing presentation capabilities, and we have RFI questions. Didn't know this when you were coming in here, did you? That we were going to supply you with questions and answers and things that you, as contracting officers and people that are looking for cleared personnel on your project, should be asking as part of your RFIs. A real quick disclaimer, this comes from GSA. It's not endorsed by GSA. It's provided to you for informational purposes only. And your participation is not an indication, endorsement, or commitment to purchase from any vendor, including SSI. This is what enables you to be able to answer polls like this one. which is why in the world did you decide to join here today? I'm in HR and I have cleared personnel issues. I am in contracting and deal with cleared personnel contracts. I have issues with obtaining. You can answer as many as you want, by the way. I think there's multiple choice. So I have issues with obtaining cleared personnel, or my boss made me come. I knew there would be some Weisenheimers here. I knew it. I knew there would be. That's why we put it in. All right, we're glad that you guys decided to join us, and I want to introduce you to the folks from SSI who are going to be joining us today. Been around for a little while, know a little bit about the cleared personnel market, and I'm going to introduce you to Steve Mackey, who's going to tell us about SSI. Tell us what you got there, Steve.
Good afternoon. As Dave said, I'm Steve. I'm the founder and owner of SSI. We're an enterprise-focused IT services firm. Been working mainly labor contracts in the cleared space. 100% of our labor work has been cleared. As we said before, we're in southwest of Washington, D.C., about 15 miles, in a little municipality called Manassas Park. Happens to be a hub zone, which is part of one of our quals.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Which is interesting as a high-end IT company. But,
I guarantee it is.
because hub zones are typically economically impoverished areas, difficult to find talent. But we happen to do that through, and I'll stop talking about this right now, but we happen to do that through a community service project. We staff our hub zone footprint by hiring temp labor to do community service.
That sounds like another briefing we got to talk about.
It's a totally different briefing. I'll move on. Our bona fides, our work has basically been in DLA for over 14 years, managing all their data storage enterprise-wide, backup and primary data storage. We've been at Missile Defense Agency doing cyber intelligence stuff, Army and Cyber Command, staffing their Security Operations Center for 4 years under Booz Allen Hamilton. We were at NGA for 6 years, migrating 25% of their mission applications from legacy government site, government or to a contractor commercial facility and back into the Gov Cloud. So and this is all in cleared work. So we've been there and done that from an IT cyber perspective with cleared folks. So we learned a couple things along the way, thought we would share them today to see if that would help our government buyers and some of our industry cooperators.
What's that word? A cooperator?
Coopetition. Some of our coopetition. Our corporate quals, ISO 9001, NIST SP 800-171, CMMC sort of compliance. For those who don't know, that's cyber stuff. SDVO, of course, Hub Zone. We've got a GSA schedule, C4D prime contract, and we're on the DLA Jets contract. So
fantastic.
That's enough. I'll stop. I'll let the lady who really knows about all this stuff.
There you go. And that would be April Duncan.
She's Duncan, our secret weapon.
That's right.
Okay.
She's awesome. So let's talk about some of these agency challenges. You handle HR things, and what is your role in SSI? What do you do?
Finder extraordinaire of the purple squirrel with a rainbow tail that customer needs. Now, 20 years experience in HR, so everything from compensation strategy, benefits, finding that talent that is really niche. It's really hard to find, recruiting them, landing them, and then the key thing is retaining them, keeping them at the company. Our company has an average tenure way above the industry average tenure for most small businesses in government contracting. Everybody knows how quickly government contracts turn over, but our employees, our tenure is well over 5 years per employee. And so we've got, some tips and tricks for kind of how we do that, some stuff we want to share regarding that, and also want to kind of get to the crux of why is there such issues with retention, especially in the cleared market, finding that talent and keeping it.
Yeah, love it. And so we have a couple challenges here that the awarded contractor does not perform as expected. No way, can't possibly. So, and you mentioned this personnel turnover, yep, which absolutely negatively impacts performance. And then seats go empty, and that doesn't help anybody, does it?
No.
And imagine this: contractors want more dollars. No way.
Yeah.
It can't possibly be. And a lot of times that happens specifically. Why does that happen, April? I know it can be multiple things.
So we hear this all the time from customers, agencies that we work with, right? The contractor puts down in a proposal, they're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then in 3 months, 6 months, seats are empty. People who were there have left, and they're actually coming back in a 3-month or a 6-month period saying we need more money to bring more people in. And why is that happening? It's happening because the homework wasn't done to begin with, right? On the front end of things, the planning cycle, they're, instead of planning to hire, they're panic hiring. So we're going to talk about don't panic hire. That's not what we want to do. We want to plan to hire.
And we are going to be talking exactly about that. I think all this kind of revolves around the front end of that you mentioned, and it goes to realistic.
Yes. Know the market.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Know the market. And so all right. So what is your biggest challenge in cleared personnel? So is it finding that talent? We talked about that. Keeping your talent, and as many as you want, by the way, you can pick as many as you want. And the time it takes to obtain clearances, it can be brutal. Vendor qualifications, vendor pricing, which it's kind of a sideways move, which we just said, April, because of if you're not doing this right on the front end, it really can cause trouble. And knowing when projects are real so you can get ahead of the clearance delays. Imagine some forward thinking. Oh, what a concept. And I am going to, there's a couple of questions here. Let's see what we got. Ooh, there's a bunch of folks that oh, look at this. They're here. Thomas says, I like Dave L. That's why he's here. Fantastic. You can stay, Thomas. Interagency briefing, clear personnel challenge. Let's see. They got those. We got all the handouts there. Mark's with an SDVOSB, 8A firm. Nice. Looking for these connections. Love it. Love it.
Hey, Dave, I can take that one question about the CMMC certification.
Yep.
No, we're not. There are only a few companies that have been through the pilot certification program. It's just getting off the ground. So if you find a CMMC certified company, let me know, because I don't know which dozen that is out of the thousands that are currently working for DoD.
Right. Absolutely. And then Gregory says it's happening because they're hiring what I call mercenaries. Gregory's bringing that up. Love it. Love it. All right. So that's it for now. For those, I don't see any other Q. If there's nothing else we want to go into, any kind of participation is good. So please do it. So we'll close this poll down. And I will share this out where what people are saying. Can you see that, April? Where
Sure can.
Yeah, it looks like pretty close to the clearances and finding cleared talent. They're all tied up there, and knowing projects are real. Love that. A lot of folks have problems with keeping good talent, and we know that that's exactly why we're here to talk about that. So tell us about knowing the market. What can we do about that?
So planning ahead and knowing the market is so key to retention and avoiding turnover. So we know on any project, turnover is costly. It's costly for two reasons, right? You get a gap in not having someone there to fill a seat and do a critical job. It could affect mission, could affect contract performance, but it's also costly to the companies that are having to replace the people. I mean, we know how much it costs to have to go recruit someone new, potentially signing bonuses, relocations to get them to move. I mean, all kinds of things are involved. It's very costly. So we want to reduce the turnover to the extent that we can. And we can tell you that to be successful with this, you really have to start pre-RFP. Before that solicitation comes out, when you're doing source aside, you're doing RFIs, you really got to get into the homework phase of things then. Make sure you're really understanding the competitive landscape, how bidders should be pricing your work. We're kind of in an age right now of everything is dig down, get the lowest price you possibly can. We're going to talk about how to kind of set a framework for that, right? Price the competitive landscape. We got to understand what those are. And we have to look at our hiring and the contracts we're letting out and these people that we're going to be bringing on through the lens of what skills do I really need? What certifications are these people going to have? When someone has to have an SCI level clearance working, in a classified space, and they got to get a poly level special access program, there's a premium on those kind of folks, and they command more in terms of dollars. So you got to really kind of look at your work through that lens and say, I need to look at these folks and see what should they really be paid on the market. When you put out sources, you put out RFIs, not only are you looking for capable companies in different socioeconomic statuses and whatnot, checking the box to get that RFI done, you really need to get answers to some very key questions at that stage. And we're going to actually give you a handout with 8 questions every single RFI should ask. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But Dave, you can go to the next slide for me. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the range and kind of the methodology for setting the range. If you can define your competitive range for bids in advance and really understand where's the low bar and where's the high bar, you can set yourself up for success and not risk a fail in the contract with the contractor that gets awarded, because honestly, they came in with a price they cannot execute to. Hence, they come ask for more money, right? So what you see here on the graphic, this is a salary data pull right from, it's a public source. The data is pulled from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is just a network engineer. And you see the median salary for a network engineer in Columbus, Ohio. I just picked a random location. And the median pay for a network engineer in Columbus, Ohio, you can see is $72,800, right? So when you're building your RFI and you're looking at what is my competitive range for this bid really going to be, you can pull this data yourself and say, well, I know the people that are going to be working for me are going to be network engineers, or they're going to be system admins, or they're going to be database engineers, or whatever they are. And here is the range from the 25th to the 75th percentile. Here's about what these folks are going to get paid in this range. And then multiply that out times the number of people that you're going to need staffed on your program. Now you can apply to that salary industry average numbers for things like fringe benefits, the cost of those, and industry average for G&A, and a very competitive profit number. And here's the thing, this math is not mysterious. This math is actually easy to do. You can calculate it yourself and come up with a low bar and a high bar. And you'll know going in, if I get a bid that comes in below the 25th percentile, and this bidder is going to come in and staff all these positions, but all of their salaries look like they're going to be under the 25th percentile, we're going to run into trouble. What's the reason for that? Because when people leave jobs, when they quit, when you have turnover, they quit for 2 reasons. I think it's on my next slide.
Yep.
The 2 reasons they quit is they hate their manager, they quit their manager, or they don't like their pay. This is documented 90% of the time. When talent leaves, when they're unhappy, they're quitting because they've got a bad relationship with their supervisor, number 1. They don't like who they're working with. Or number 2, they're unhappy with their pay. If pay has been set by contractors and bidders down in the 10th percentile, the 20th percentile on that bell curve, then that means 80% of those people's, the people who are doing the same kind of work in the same region, 80% of them are getting paid better than that person is, because they're down at the bottom of the curve.
And we always love to be on the lowest 20% of the people.
Don't we all love to be in the bottom?
Yeah. Everybody loves them.
At that point, osmosis takes over.
Yeah.
People will move if they feel as though they're undervalued and they know they can go somewhere else where they will feel more valued.
And so those two are tied together as well, because if they feel undervalued, they're going to have a bad relationship with their manager, most likely.
Which will cascade into not as good service.
And
happy employees make happy customers. And you know, if you've got people working for slave labor, one, they're not going to stick around, but while they are there, they may not be very happy.
No, they're not. And I can add to this. Years ago, I was in the construction world where we were laying fiber optic cable. And if we didn't do our reviews, right, and give bonuses or give the raises, they wouldn't take 50. It's a 50-cent raise, right? If you didn't pay them the 50-cent raise, they're going to take $5 out of you, not 50 cents.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a whole lot of that happened there. And we do have, wait a minute, let me go here. So you mentioned this, April. I think this is really cool it's a takeaway that you didn't expect when you came here. So your RFI Enhancers that you should be looking for is a handout. Terry, can you pop that in for us real quick? And I think, is that in there all by itself? Yes, it is. So you can download this document. It's a PDF that you can download. But I think you guys are going to walk through each one of these and talk to them, and we'll get some insight from you as well. If you have something to lay in on this, let us know, and I'll keep the chat open and we'll keep the dialogue going. So go right ahead.
Yeah, please do share if you have input or thoughts on these. These are just sort of 8 very well-rounded questions that should be asked. Again, this is pre-RFP. This is when you're in the sources sought, you're doing your RFI, you're doing your analysis, and you're checking to see where is that low bar down in the 25th percentile, and where's the high bar 75th percentile. So when you get ready to put out your solicitation and the bids start coming back and you're evaluating them, you already know, you've done the homework in advance and you already know what you're going to see that might be too low and you're going to toss it out, or what's going to be too high. So the first question we have here that you might want to include in an RFI or a sources sought is, what is your company's strategy for setting compensation and benefits? Ask them that question. Ask them, how do they do it? What's the method? What methodology do they use to set someone's pay and their benefits? And you're going to want to look for things like, oh, we use published statistics on salary in geographic locations, and we measure or benchmark what the industry is doing, and we set pay that way. Not that we just set the lowest, cheapest we can get them at, but you want to see them reference sites like PayScale or ERI, or maybe they have comp analysts. They have some of these things like that, and you're going to see them tell you, oh, we set the bar right here at the median or somewhere between 25th and median. They want to be competitive, but they're not in the dirt, right? So that's a great question you want to ask in an RFI. The next question you might ask is, describe how you handle new hires. So talk about bringing someone in. What kinds of things are you going to give them in a package? And are they competitive? Ask them, how many days of PTO do your folks get? And you can check that with industry average. So a company who's only giving their people 5 days of vacation a year, they're not keeping up with par. And their employees are going to look around and go, well, you know, my neighbor over here is getting 5 more days of PTO than I am a year. And you're already starting to deal with the flight risk. Things like their company contribution to health insurance. Do they have a health savings plan? Are they getting life insurance? You can ask companies this in advance and have them sort of tell you what their framework is for how they treat their people. Professional training is a huge one, right? Certifications, 8570 compliance. Ask companies, are you investing in your employees? Are you helping them? Are you getting them study materials? Are you paying for their certification exams? Like, are we staying on top of this with our people and helping them stay compliant with those certifications? So here's another question that you might consider. Describe recent success retaining cleared personnel on a contract, and ask for specifics. How many people did you staff, or how many people did you hire? How many locations were there? How much time did it take you? Did you do it in 2 weeks? Did you do it in 4 weeks? And you want to compare that to the project you're getting ready to release, right? If you have a solicitation coming out, it's got 25 people on it, and the company that is responding to your sources sought or your RFI has only hired 2 people at one time, you might question, are they going to be able to do 25? But ask them for some specifics and get assurance that they have the qualifications to be able to do this. So that's another question you might ask.
So real quick, there's
Yep.
a couple of thrown in here. First of all, and Andrea says, and yet the government keeps awarding to the lowest bidder. There's reason for it, but we also know that is not the path of least resistance for a contract to be successful, right?
It's expedient for the government to do LPTA because it's less work. That's true. But there's a reason the National Defense Authorization Act for 2017 forbade awarding LPTA or using LPTA criteria for IT services contracts, because it ends up generating mission risk. It's not illegal for a company to come in and underbid and buy the work.
Correct.
Bid it for less than it costs in order to get a footprint in the market. But as a buyer, I would submit you really need to think about whether or not you want to do that. The government owns half the equation, or the buyer owns half the equation, and the seller does too. And if the sellers, think of it as like buying a car. If you would go research the prices before you started walking into car lots, presumably, and know generally what it's going to cost to buy that car. So you don't go out to the market without knowing how much it's going to cost you first. And then number 2, when you're talking to a salesman and he offers you the car, because he's going to make that sale by gum, and he offers it for you to 25% below what you know the lowest price in the market is, you need to be thinking about going to lunch and saying, I'll be back later, and never come back. because he's trying to sell you a car that was in a flood in New Orleans,
Yep.
that's got major problems. So you really do get what you pay for, and we're here to try and help your government buyers and our industry partners to understand, the golden rule applies in contracting too.
It sure does.
You treat your contractor the way you would want to be treated if you were them. How would that be? Well, get paid a reasonable amount so that we can take care of the people that you want us to hire. Not make gobs of money. We're not looking to buy boats or anything. We just want to be able to do our job and do it well. And we can do that if we're compensated appropriately. So I would say, Andrea, you're absolutely right. And we're trying to help with that problem.
And John Ryan has one here. Small companies have to compete with large companies who may have ongoing contracts to provide financial flywheel on keeping talent. This is true. When a small company finds an A-team player, they're at risk of losing those critical players to a bigger company. A company with annual revenues of 7 billion plus can poach talent easily. No, I can't imagine.
You got to be careful reading your teaming agreements and make sure those non-solicitation agreements are bilateral, not one-directional.
That's right.
And you got to love your employees so much they would never go work for the prime.
Whoa,
and that's what we do. We can recruit people out of the bigs all day long because they know when they call April, she's going to say, "Hey, how's your wife and the baby doing?" She's never going to say, "What's your employee number?"
Right.
There you go.
And that was a great question. I also saw a question in there about 1099s, and that kind of segues into another subject in terms of strategy for getting cleared candidates that we have had success with. So, a lot of folks, what do? They turn to a staffing company. And that in itself presents a huge challenge because typically when you go to a staffing company, it's an hourly arrangement, 1099 kind of thing, and they're not getting benefits, they're not getting paid holidays, and they're immediately unhappy from day one with that staffing company. And so that's not a solution that we go with. We've had some luck kind of growing our own talent. And I would encourage you to think about having a program within your company where you take, fresh talent straight out of high school, straight out of college, perhaps even, that, these kids coming out of school these days, they know more, I swear, about IT than the majority of us do. They're little cyber hackers already, right, coming out of high school, We've started building our own pipeline of folks that can come in, work on help desk programs, low-level network engineers initially, and they work their way up through. And, you can build yourself a pipeline of cleared folks. So if you are a company that has a cleared contract, you can submit someone for a clearance and go ahead and get them through that process. It can take a while. The clearance process is long and laborsome. Definitely the only things you can do to really speed that up is to make sure the paperwork is done right the first time. Have an FSO that is on top of it, reviews all that documentation, make sure every box is filled in, every I is dotted and every T is crossed. A lot of the churn with clearances comes in because, folks don't fill it out right the first time. But we've actually been taking folks who have an interest in IT. We just recently had a guy who's been working as an EMT most of his life, but on the side, he's got his own home network that he's set up and he's been teaching himself a lot of skills. We put him in for a clearance and he got his interim in about 3-4 months. And he's had to get his 8570 certs. And so we supported him with that. He studied. We helped him with the exam cost. And now we've got a full up round ready to go to work on a help desk contract who 6 months ago had no clearance and no certs. So you can build your own pipeline of candidates. And that is a way to circumvent the big boys in the industry.
And I think to your point with that, April, is make sure you're telling folks when you're doing your submission, if you're from industry, telling people this is what we're doing but it's contracting folks ask the question, and that's the kind of answer that you want to hear is how are you managing that process? So we'll get to some more questions in just a minute because we have a couple of other comments and questions I think that are really, really good, by the way. Good. Let's go to number 4.
So one of the reasons people leave, we said one is pay and the other is they quit their manager. They don't like the person that they're working for or working with. So in your early stages with your sources sought, or you're trying to field the candidates, all these companies that could be bidding, right? Ask them, what is their strategy for managing employees who work remote? or work at a customer site. I mean, now we're all still pretty much working remote. How do they manage them? Because I hear this all the time when I'm talking to candidates and recruiting them to come work for us. You know what they tell me? I started my job, they did my onboarding, I filled out my, my I-9, and I never heard from them again. I just get a paycheck every 2 weeks dropped in my account, and they never hear from their company. There's no manager talking to them. So ask this question, find out how involved are you with your staff? We assign every person at our company a direct manager at SSI. We call them weekly for weekly status calls, and we do monthly reporting with them. They get 30-day and 90-day performance check-ins. We're constantly surveying our customers saying, how are things going? Give me feedback. We advocate for our employees, and we're constantly interacting with them, communicating with them. It's Teams chats, it's phone calls, it's emails, and we go on site and we visit our people. We take them to lunch. We do things to maintain that relationship with our employees so they like their management. They feel like we're advocating for them and that we're working with them instead of just, hey, go put your butt in that seat and generate money for me, and I'm never going to talk to you again. Oh, by the way, don't quit, while you're there.
Yes.
So don't do it that way. And you can ask these questions and get this feedback from the companies to help you determine, are they really taking care of their people? Are their people going to stay there at that company?
Yeah,
that's a great question to ask.
You hit it on the head. Leadership counts, and we practice servant leadership. We view it as our job is taking care of the workforce because they earn the money that pays our salaries, and we tell them that. And when I take them out to lunch, I say, thank you for my job, and let me know if there's anything else we can do to make your things easier for you. And we keep back office stuff to a minimum. It's essentially, again, the golden rule. Treat your employees the way you would want to be treated, and they tend not to leave. Our number one employee number 0001, still works for us after 15 years.
Still here
and
today.
He could have been recruited away by a bunch of babes.
Yeah.
Because he likes us. And we put golden handcuffs in. We're wise about the way we do our HR benefits. I mean, we got the 401k match. We've got the bonuses that you got to get back if you leave, within 6 months, and education bonuses, and they're golden handcuffs, admittedly. But those folks don't mind putting them on, and they know if they just got to give them back, give them back if they leave early. But
yeah.
Steve is not employee number one.
No.
That's a great question.
I'm
Somebody
number
just asked
two.
that. I'm like, no, it's not him actually.
That's funny.
And it's not me either, by the way. Great question. Definitely you should ask, what is your turnover rate? That is measurable, completely measurable. Ask them over the last 3 years, not including a contract loss that maybe, they had no control over. We get that, right? But how many people leave your company voluntarily? Like they just up and say, I quit because they don't like their manager, because they're not happy with their pay or their benefits, not because someone died and they had to move away, but because they're just parting ways with your company. They decide they want to work there anymore. Ask for that turnover rate. Why not ask for that early at the sources sought RFI stage and know, oh man, I'm dealing with a company that's got 3 times the national average of a turnover rate. I can pretty much guarantee I'm going to have vacancies on my contract. It's going to be a problem.
And what about the ones that say we don't have any turnover rate? That's liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah, no.
That they have one
The
person,
idea
no
is
past performance.
measure and compare to industry. You want a number that's at industry average or below.
Love it. Love it.
Every company should have a retention program. There should be a plan to retain. Because if you're not planning to retain, guess what you're planning to do?
Mm-hmm.
Lose. They're going to go out the door.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? What are the components of a retention plan? And someone had said they would love this briefing if they came away with one way to help retain people. So here you go. Here's the list. Retention bonuses are one way. Now, not every company's in a position to do that. I get that. But even a $500 retention bonus paid at the end of the year, right at Christmas time, employees love that. They love it. They can put an extra toy under the tree for the kid because they stayed at their company that year. Professional development, training, helping your employees stay current with their 8570 certifications, especially in the cleared market. If they're in a niche field, they're doing storage and they need NetApp certs, or they're DBAs and they got to have the Oracle cert or whatever it is, support them in that. No, you don't have to send them to a $4,000 a week boot camp necessarily, but can you buy them study materials and help them with that $150, $200 exam cost? Yeah, and it's negligible. And what it does is invest in that employee and shows them that you are concerned with them and you want them to stay at the company. Make sure you are giving cost of living increases. If you're freezing pay and people are not getting increases to help keep food on the table, obviously going to be a problem. Engagement activities. Again, relationship with the manager. Do you send out a newsletter? Do you spotlight people in your company from time to time and call out their accomplishments and what they've done? Are you showing that they're adding value? People love praise.
Yeah, they
People love to be praised.
You're doing a great job, April.
do.
Quarterly lunches is something that we instituted early on, and it's usually like by program. And we'll just, pop over, and it doesn't have to be at a fancy restaurant. You can picnic outside and bring subs. But the fact that you took the time to show up, handed them a soda and a sandwich, and you sit down and hey, what's going on in the project? Anything I need to know? How can I help you? Oh, you need a stand-up desk because your back's killing you? Hey, let me help you out with that. Talk to your employees and know what's going on. This is how you retain people.
Love it.
Wow.
All right, we're getting there. We're on question 7. There's 2 to go. I would suggest always asking this question because I'm not a fan of second tier subcontracting to a staffing service. Now, there are some great staffing companies out there. And if somebody here is from a staffing company, no offense intended. Okay, there is a place for it. Absolutely. Yeah. In this market, in the IT cleared personnel market, it's going to be really tough to retain people if you're using a staffing company. I think staffing companies are great if you got to fill low-level admins and secretaries and those positions that are constantly getting turned over and they're lower in the pay scale anyway. But if we're using staffing companies to staff highly cleared positions that require those certifications, within 30 days of that person starting on the contract, they're looking around and going, I'm not getting a paid holiday. I'm not getting any overtime. I'm not getting vacation pay. And they're stuck that way. And guess what? Not only that, they're getting paid less too. Because when you go to that second tier subcontractor, guess what happens? The first tier is getting a cut, and then the second tier is getting what's left over. So that person's pay is going to be depressed. It's going to be probably below the 25th percentile on the curve. So ask this question up front. Are you going to use second tier staffing services firm? And if you are, how are you going to mitigate the potential turnover that you're going to deal with because of using that firm? That's a great question to ask. Great question. And this last one, it's another way to come at it, right? It's another way to really analyze your bidders and the contractors that might be coming in, is to say, do you have a quality management system? So a lot of companies claim it. I do. We do things in a quality manner. We have this, we have that. But then take it one more level and say, but what critical business processes are you actually certifying? Sometimes what you will find out is companies are ISO 9000 certified, but only in one little niche thing that they do, like software design. And that's all they're certified in. So they're not really doing things in a quality manner necessarily from a corporate standpoint, from how they staff people and personnel retention and management and project management. So you can take this question to a second level and ask, hey, what processes are you actually certifying at your company? Because if they're certifying, as we do at SSI, we're actually certified in how we hire and staff people onto programs. We measure customer satisfaction. We measure, did they get there on time? Did they have all the qualifications on the day one when they arrived? We measure that, and then we do a continual process improvement of our staffing process to make sure we are, meeting the bill every time. So this is another way to go about it and ask a question that would kind of help you hone in that pool of bidders that might be coming to you for an effort.
That is fantastic. And you got all these, you don't have to write any of these down. They're all in that document that you have.
Free, you get them for free.
For free, my favorite 4-letter word, for free. So we do have a question here where you expect a cleared personnel IT cert requirement here for personnel. You can answer that. And if you're needing to meet if you're in the contracting world, if you're needing to meet any of the socioeconomic requirements, because this will help us get you what you need in order to get there. And we are going to get into the participation piece. We have like a bazillion here. I knew we would. So we will be going over by a couple of minutes. And if we can't get to your question, we'll make sure that we engage with you to get the answer for you after this. So Navair is putting out LPTA, I love this, contracts for aviation contract maintenance support. Does anybody want to get on an aircraft that's been maintained by lowest paid employee? Love it,
No.
Lawrence. Fantastic. That's a winner.
Well said.
And John Ryan says, check the job posting now on major contract on positions requiring clearance. Some offer up to $40,000 bonus for existing clearance. Again, big contractors have the financial strength that small companies don't. This is true. And Thomas says, yep. And regardless.
That's where the personal touch, though. That's where that personal touch and that management relationship really factor in.
Yep.
And growing your own talent. You know, there are folks out there, and I picked a guy up out of the oil industry. Never had worked for the government, no federal experience at all, but he was a storage guru. Like, he knew how to build data storage in the cloud. Picked him up out of the oil industry, had all the qualifications. We just cleared him. You know, so build your own talent. Think outside the box.
That's right.
Yeah, M&M asked a question about that as well. We don't have to put them on payroll. You can just execute a consulting agreement with an individual and get them submitted for a background investigation. And
Absolutely.
then you've got the golden strand attached to them. And then when their clearance comes in, then you can offer them, bring them in with an offer letter and have them start working for you. And
Nice.
DIS, formerly DSS, has audited our records and seen we have people that were not working for us on our background investigation list being worked. And they say, well, why is this person here? And we say, well, because we're going to have an opening at this Department of State contract in a couple of months, and we're clearing them for that. And they say, oh, okay, that's cool. So as long as you don't do it in dozens of people,
Sure. So, and I think that's really good advice, by the way, where you're looking at ways to be able to get that pipeline cooking.
Yep.
And that's a trick of the trade because you've been in it forever. So that's
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah. And for SCI billets, it's a lot more challenging because the government controls those billets, onesie twosies, and smart buyers will say, we've got this number of bench billets you can use to get people cleared to SCI. That takes longer, but yeah, it's challenging when they don't give you any extras.
I gotcha. Gregory says, regardless, there are issues that by law, anyone can apply for any job and cannot be. I agree with that too. And John Ryan keeps saying LinkedIn is the killing grounds, the poacher's killing ground. By the way, 18 years prior to retiring, I worked for one of the evil ones, $20 billion. 20 billion. Anyway, sorry about that.
Doubted yourself.
All right. So, Gregory, seen too many companies getting in trouble using staffing companies,
Oh,
even
yeah.
a non-classified environment. True.
Yeah.
Thomas. Oh, those SF-86s.
Painful.
Greg,
They're
you're
painful.
correct. We can't prevent people from fleeing. The goal is to treat them so they don't want to leave, says Steve Mackey.
Yes.
That was an insider.
You got
I didn't
it.
realize I was reading an insider.
All right, man. I can answer the questions for you.
That's right. You try to do it. And that's good. There's a ton more here. Let's see. We do want to get to that. Are you dealing with the millennial mentality? That is like a therapy session just waiting to happen for everybody. I've seen young talent leave cleared positions because they do not have the desired flexibility. Nice. So there's that. And yeah, want to be fully remote. Personal touch important. Juliana says. I saw that when you were answering that question.
We have been hiring the millennials. Just recently hired several young 20s, early 20s, late 20s, and that personal touch gets them too. I agree. They tend to be. They want a lot of money, a lot of benefits, and they want to sit at home. And I hear you. I know what you're talking about. But if you really develop the relationship with them, a lot of them are really looking for that company that will mentor them through their career field and help them build their resume.
And it means something to them. And it goes to what this is what from Steve said, Steve Geary. I've been in business 20 years. Only have one person ever left me for another job or just quit.
Wow.
And so there have been requirements. One guy passed away. Obviously, that's permanent employees usually begin on contract basis, and we like them. They transition. Love it to permanent.
Yeah.
And that's, I think the two Steves here have it down. Well, let me end this poll because a lot of people don't get that out of the way. Sorry about that. And we will get to a few more suggestions and questions in just a minute because we have several. But before we do that, we want to give the session takeaways. If anybody needs to get out of here, since we're already over time, which is okay. You want to take this, April?
Absolutely. So the key things that at the end of this, we really want you to drive home, right, is when you have high turnover, which can be prevented early on, it's the challenge is going to be you're going to have a mission risk, vacancies, open seats sitting, and the work isn't getting done. And then a lot of times the replacements come in, and quite frankly, they're D students, and they got a lot of time and effort trying to get up to speed, and stuff just slips through the cracks, turns into a mess. You can get excellent performance without adding more money to the contract, but it requires in advance that we're really looking at that curve. We're understanding what our low bar and our high bar are, and we're not going below the low bar, and we don't need to be above the high bar, right? We know where the reality of things is, and it's not a mysterious form of math. We just have to do the math. You plan for success early by really asking those value-added questions and getting that data in the pre-RFP stage.
Love it, love it, love it. And those questions are right there for you to download. And as I mentioned earlier, your participation in this is not an indication or endorsement to purchase from anybody. But if you want to, here's how you can purchase from SSI.
Right.
You are a small business. You're hub zone, service disabled. Thank you for your service, Steve. And you're also on GSA schedule. So here's the information that you can do, and that information will be provided to you in the handouts as well. You will get a recap email early next week you'll probably get one even sooner, with just the presentation in its raw form and the ability to connect with these folks one-on-one. If you decide that does make sense for you to do, connect with Steve, connect with April.
Absolutely.
They'll be glad to help you. And we do have a bunch more questions, but I wanted to make sure that, and the info down below is how you get in touch with those guys. If you want to yell at me or complain about GovBrief or say nice things, you can send it to support@govbrief.us. But the rest of everything else, you can send right to info@ssihq.net at the bottom. And we're going to keep answering and talking about these questions as well. So MM says, it seems premature to hire a permanent person that may not have a need yet and to have to spend the money to get them up and going. I'm always been thinking that when we do, I hire someone versus a 1099.
That's a great point. And I totally agree with you. You don't hire them, bring them on overhead and have to pay a salary while you're waiting for a contract bill. You don't do that. So what we do is we sign them to just a very brief, like one-page consulting agreement, so that we have an agreement. We know if we get you cleared and you get full up qualified for this agreement, you'll come to work for us at that stage. But in the meantime, they're going to keep doing what they've been doing. They're going to keep working as an EMT or whatever, whatever job they've been doing outside of the cleared space.
Yep.
You put them in for their clearance and you wait it out. And no money off your back at that stage.
And Gregory says you can also hire someone hourly, not salaried. Exactly. Right. That kind of thing. Okay. Richard says, a major issue a lot of younger employees face is the over-seasoned employees not willing to accept market changes or not being able to progress due to there not being any growth potential for that same reason. So there's the inverse of what the older folks would talk about millennials, right? So it's the flip of that is that, hey, I'm getting old. I don't want to know anything else, right?
Yeah,
so
it's always a challenge in making sure that people feel as though they have some ability for professional development.
And Gregory's asking, are any of you familiar with ghosting?
Yes.
But don't answer that.
Okay, that's a no-fly zone. Okay, sorry.
That was a
joke on its own.
That was okay. The answer was the joke. It's just ignoring. I got to tell you, I've actually talked to my son works for one of the big evil companies, and his direct manager was ghosting him. He would send his direct manager questions about HR and benefits and stuff that a line manager ought to know, and he would get no response at all, like none for months. And he'd send like 4 or 6 emails asking simple questions, and he got no response from his manager. That, I will submit, is bad management and why you don't want to do to your employees, so they'll quit.
So there you go. Please address needing a contract before adding more clear personnel, because you do need to have a place to put them in order to facilitate that. Is that what she's saying, Susan?
Yes.
Is that what that means?
I think so.
Yep. How to get good talent is the issue, Juliana. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it was easy, everybody be able to do it, right, April?
Exactly.
Another option, Gregory says, another option is to bring them in at the B and P stage.
Bid proposal, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You can. And when you hire someone, everything goes well, but the person never shows up and completely disappear. Yep. You get that as an issue too. We do have another one. This is in the Q&A. Let's see if I get this. On the flip side of poaching employees, the government is notorious for picking the best contractors, employees, and offering them a job. Yep.
That's a risk.
That does sometimes happen, but hey, that's the highest form of praise, right?
Yeah.
The person that you supplied, they love so much, you did such a great job that they want to poach them away from you. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, unfortunately. If you do your job well, staffing these people on these contracts, often this does happen. We've had it happen to us. And, we just kind of go with grace and say, okay, but guarantee me I get to backfill the position. That's the way I go in. I say, you can take my person if they agree and they want to go, but you got to guarantee me not only can I backfill his position, but you got to give me one more. Do a little bartering with him.
Yeah. And guess what? You can play the guilty card, right?
Yes.
Yeah, play it. Play that
Absolutely.
card. That's a winner card to play. And so MM says, you mentioned how to determine the best person to use. Is there data for this? Hang on a second. I want to see if I can find MM in the whole world here of everybody that's still here. MM, I'm going to let you talk because I want to get some insight on what you're asking for that. Are you there, MM?
Yes.
All right, MM, that's good. We know.
Sorry, it shut me out, and I was just trying to get back in quickly. So my name's Mark Greneau. I work. My company is Moses IT.
Okay.
And we're service disabled veteran 8A company. We're waiting for our final processes on the 8A. We've done several federal contracts already for the Navy and for the. We did the Library of Congress back 2 days before the insurrection. That was interesting. But anyway, it was there. I seen a lot of stuff there that was unbelievable, and Facebook shut me down. That was crazy. But my question is, one of the things that I read that got my interest in doing this meeting and inviting my team, there's 4 or 5 of us on here, was you said, not only selecting someone that has the right security clearance, but has, the skills to be able to do that. So obviously, one of the questions I had also, you read earlier about when I said, obviously at the point where I'm using that person over and over, it would be more beneficial for me to hire that person permanently and use them instead of contracting someone in. And sounds like that Steve and April are saying, having your own person is probably going to be the best way to go about doing that. Because when it comes to having, performance bonds and surety bonds, when I'm getting into those type of contracts where we're going on, we've got to have someone with a proper clearance to manage a 5-year contract. Say we're working for the U.S. Air Force and we've got some kind of 5-year managed service plan.
So what data? What data are you looking for?
I would like to hire someone permanently, but if it's just a quick and dirty, 2 or 3 month gig, do I hire that person for that? And I don't know when the next one comes in. So I was wondering, is there data that can tell me someone that we can use that we pay by the hour? We pay them a little bit more per hour to acquire them for those shorter term projects, and then either try to bring them on or find someone with similar skill sets that we can actually get to help us on the next project that we're doing. And you mentioned earlier about when you're starting the sources salt is the best time to bring someone on. Is that correct?
Yeah. Is that what you're thinking, April? As far as
so I don't know if it's the best time to hire the person necessarily, but it's definitely the best time to start the process in terms of recruiting, vetting, making sure they're a fit for your company. Obviously, it can be a pretty big cost burden to hire them on before there's an actual billing seat. So, we work a lot with contingent candidates and issue contingent offer letters with all of those sort of details lined up for them. And you might have an hourly arrangement with them where, you just pay them hourly for like consulting type services. You can put them in for a clearance and start working the process with them, but then not actually bring them on as a full-time hire until you have the work and the bandwidth to support the salary.
And if you're looking for compensation data, the salary.com kind of things that April pulled are really thinking of full-time salaried and benefited people.
Yes.
Now, and that's just their salary piece. But as far as your cost or to them, if they're an independent contractor just doing a 2, 3, 4 week gig, we typically do about a 1.25 multiple on top of that. So that if they're paying for their own benefits out of there and their own workman's comp insurance and that covers their self-employment taxes and things like that. So you could still use the salary.com kind of data to get a base, like how much does a guy want to bring home every day for meals, but add 25% if they're self-employed and they got to provide their own benefits.
I think that's awesome that you just did that. I mean, you just laid out exactly the pricing model for them to help. That is super huge. And I think that helps with the folks on the government side to say, what does it really look like when you're looking for that median? You just laid it out.
If we had another 40 minutes, I'd be happy to just pen out the formula. I could actually price a contract for 10 people in like 5 minutes because it's just not complicated. The math is actually pretty simple. For those of you who are government buyers, get your support contractors to sit down and figure it out because it's not complicated.
Yeah. And to your point, if somebody with the government wants to talk to you about that formula, how much does it cost to talk to you, Steve Mackey?
Nothing.
Nothing, baby.
I will do it for free. I will send you a pricing sheet and tell you how you should do it, but it's not terribly complicated.
It's not terribly complicated, and you have somebody that's willing to help. And if you don't like it, kick it to the curb. But the fact of the matter is you got somebody that's willing to help you for free. My favorite 4-letter word. All right, guys. Well, we have run over by a good amount, but I really appreciate the feedback from everybody. Juliana is asking if you can share it here. I don't think we have it for that.
We will reach out. We will reach out, Juliana.
Juliana, just because you ask, you get.
Yeah, I wrote down your name.
So you're going to get it. And anybody that asked for anything, anybody that said that they had an immediate need, you'll get a follow-up call from folks to make sure that you get to talk with the people. And I'm telling you, if Steve and April can't do it, they're going to help you find somebody who can. Am I right, guys?
Absolutely.
We'll do our best.
That's right. You're going to do the best we can.
Cub Scout motto.
Emily, you are welcome. So are you, Juliana. Presentation documents. Terry, can you pop them in one more time? The recording, yes, will be sent out. It will happen within the next hour and a half or so. It'll look just like this that you're looking at pretty much. And then you'll get a follow-up next week.
Thanks, Thomas.
Thomas, you are welcome. Thank you very much. Great information is what they're saying for you, April and Steve.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome, Las Vegas.
It was a pleasure.
It is awesome. So again, April and Steve, thanks so much. It's really awesome. And we appreciate all the feedback. I learned a lot. I'm the type of person that walks onto a secure area and the lights go on. So there you go. I'll leave you alone as to what that really means. Anyhow, good stuff. Thanks, guys. We'll be in touch.
Thanks, everyone.